Should you stay or should you go? 5 truths that you need to hear before you decide to stay or to go. And the spiritual truth about when to walk away. If you're stuck in the should I stay or should I go loop, I see you. I have been there. And this video will give you what no friend, no book, no therapist, even though I am one, may have told you, but you are ready to hear it now. Because this is a topic that I'm hearing from so many people at the moment. Should I stay or should I go? So, in this video, I'm going to walk you through 5 spiritual truths that will help you make the most honest decision of your life. You're going to learn how to recognize when you're slowly abandoning yourself just to keep the peace, how unhealed wounds are shaping the way that you relate, and whether your partner is truly walking beside you or just leaning on a dynamic that's keeping them comfortable but you stuck. So I'm 56 years old. I've worked with thousands of clients. I've lived through 3 long-term relationships, and each one has cracked me so wide open in a way that has led me closer to my truth. So this isn't theory, this is lived in experience. So let's get into the 5 truths that you need to hear before you decide whether to stay or whether to walk away. But before we do that, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to this channel. Let me know that you're listening. And as you are listening, tell me what resonates and what doesn't resonate. Okay, so here we go. Truth number 1. If your relationship is lowering your voice, if your relationship is making you feel smaller, then you need to be prepared to leave. And so, what prepared to leave means is you're actually ready and prepared to leave, not as manipulation, not as strategy, but really be prepared to let go of the dreams, let go of the hopes, and face the fears head on. No matter what this will do to your finances, no matter what this will do to where you're going to be living, no matter what this is going to do for your status, no matter what this is going to do to your heart, it's about facing the fears head on in terms of losing the comfort and being prepared to move into the unknown. So until you're prepared to do that, you're in no position to really make a decision because you need that to be a definite way forward. If you have reached the point where you don't know whether you should stay or whether you should go in a relationship, the first thing that you need to do is face those fears about letting go. Really, really letting go. And there's a lot of grief when you get to that stage. And there's grief for all the dreams and all the hopes that you're leaving behind, but you need to be ready to do that. That needs to align with your nervous system so that you can do that. If you are listening to this, I'd love to hear your comments as well. Okay, so let's go to number 2. So number 2 is the peace that costs you your voice is not peace. It's a chain around your neck. And so if staying in the relationship means that you are abandoning yourself, that is not okay because self-abandonment isn't always about suppression. It can be about being over accommodating to your partner. So you might become really hyper attuned to your partner's needs in a way that disconnects you from your own nervous system. So what this means is that you suddenly be so careful about what you're doing in the house to make sure that you don't disturb his peace. So as an example, You might know that he really doesn't like dishes in the sink when he gets home, and so you're like, "Oh my god, I better get rid of those dishes and put them away before he gets home." Or you might not put the music that you want because he doesn't like it, or you may not really give your opinion on something because you know that's going to trigger him. So it's staying quiet just to keep the peace. And if you must dim your light to stay, the relationship is no longer in service to your soul's expansion. So, the question to ask yourself in this instance is, in what ways have I silenced, softened, or shrunk myself just to keep the peace? We've seen it recently with the Puff Diddy saga, where his ex-girlfriends, been one of them being Cassie, and the other one that's just taken the stand now, that they're saying that they're pretending that they love those freak offs just to keep their man happy. So they were pretending that they liked everything about those freak offs, those sexual situations that they were asked to be in just to keep their man happy. So they were shrinking themselves. Another example, which I'll never forget, is Princess Diana when she had an interview and she said that they were just about, Prince Charles was just about to go on a trip. And there was a phone call in the study, and on the other side of the phone was Camilla. This is at the time that Camilla and Prince Charles were having an affair. And in that moment, Princess Di had to make the decision, should I stay or should I go? In the sense, should I stay in the room and make it really uncomfortable for him that he's speaking to his mistress? Or should I actually leave them to it? And she left them to it. In that moment, oh, I've got goosebumps when I'm saying this now. In that moment, when she left them to it, so she closed the door to allow her husband to speak to his mistress in private, she abandoned herself. She was making herself small. And they're the moments that when we're doing that as partners, as women, we are blocking our throat chakra, we are stifling ourselves, and we are keeping ourselves small. So, once again, I want to remind you of the question that you need to ask yourself, which is, in what ways have I silenced myself? Have I softened myself? Have I shrunk myself just to keep the peace? So, that's something to journal on. That's something to ask yourself. Truth number 3, your past, not your present, is running the show when your unhealed wounds are coming out. And so every trigger that you have or every trigger that your partner has is not necessarily about now, but it's an echo from the past. So sometimes we stay in situations because we say to ourselves, oh, but I'm triggered, so it must mean that I need to deal with it. Sometimes what looks like love in a sub is just a subconscious attempt to recreate a familiar wound that you know the pattern, you know how to run it, but that's not healing. It's repetition. It's just keeping yourself in this loop where you are stuck, but you don't know how to react differently, and your partner doesn't know how to react differently. And so you're still playing the same patterns. He's playing the same pattern. You're playing the same pattern. So, a good example of that is Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, where their tumultuous relationship displayed epic trauma bonding, not partnership, because much of their dynamic appeared to be shaped by unhealed childhood trauma, which was just playing out publicly and destructively. And what was playing out on her part was manipulation. And we could see that when she was taping their conversations and and trying to get him to say certain things, and avoidance on his part by going back into the alcohol, back into the anger, back into the rage. So they were in this loop of anger, avoidance, rage, manipulation. And so If your inner child is negotiating for safety because it just wants to be kept safe, that's not getting out of the loop. So it goes back to my first point about, okay, how can I face this fear head on now? And a question to ask yourself is, if you have an unmet need within yourself that you're expecting somebody else to fill, they're not going to be able to fill it. Only you can fill it. So, a question to ask yourself is the part of me that's choosing this relationship, is the part of me that's choosing this relationship the adult that I am today, or is it the child that is still longing to be seen and to be safe and to be loved? So, who is it? Is it me, the adult, that is choosing this relationship and choosing these circumstances? Or is it the child within me that just wants to be seen, that just wants to be loved, that just wants to be cherished, that just wants to be adored? Because if we have these unmet needs within us and we expect somebody else to fill them, we will always be disappointed. Always. Truth number 4, relationships are mirrors, but they are the biggest opportunities for growth. But that doesn't mean you have to stay. Just because they are the biggest relationships for growth, a dangerous spiritual bypass is when you use, oh, everything is a mirror. I've done that. Everything is a mirror as justification to stay in a toxic situation, because not all reflections are worthy of your interpretation or your analysis. An example would be Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown. Whitney once said that she stayed because their dysfunction reflected her own inner chaos. But that mirroring ultimately contributed to her downfall. So, a really good question to ask here is, do I feel more clear and empowered in this mirror, or more confused, smaller, or unworthy? And so it goes back to something I had said in a previous video, which is love does not confuse. Love clarifies. When you feel scattered, when you feel confused, when you feel like you don't know where to go, what to do, you're not sure of yourself, that's not love. You're in a situation that you need to change or you need to get out of. Truth number 5. And before we get to truth number 5, I will be telling you at the very, very end as to some solutions as to how to deal with this. So truth number 5 is carrying the growth for 2. So what this means is that I saw this actually as a post on Insta. I can't recall who wrote it, but it said, you're not here to be someone else's emotional rehab center, something like that. So you're not here to be there for somebody else's potential. You're not here so that you can help somebody else grow. So many sympathetic, empathetic people confuse potential with partnership, but real partnership doesn't ask you to be a coach. It doesn't ask you to be your partner's therapist. It doesn't ask you to be your partner's savior. So don't stay for what's possible. Stay for what is. Always, when you hear some words of promises from your partner, actions, not words. Actions, not words. And same with you. Make sure that they are actions, not words. Because women who take on the responsibility of everything, whether it's their husband, their children, their finances, holidays, everything, at some point resentment will develop, and then it will intensify. So the question to ask yourself is, am I growing with them, or am I trying to grow for them? I thought I was going to give you 5 truths, but I've actually got 6. So the 6th one is, which choice is bringing me back to myself? Is it going to be staying, or is it going to be leaving? Which choice is going to give me my voice back? Which choice is going to give me my truth back? Because the truth is that it's not about what you owe the relationship, but it's what you owe your growth. And maybe your growth can be expanded in the relationship if both parties agree to come to the party, but it may not be if both parties do not come to the party. And so when you picture staying or going, the question to ask yourself is, do I feel the expansion or do I feel contraction in my body? And so sometimes spiritual people, they stay too long because they intellectualize dysfunction. And in fact, anytime anybody is confused, I always tell them, get out of your head and get into your heart. Stop thinking about the pros and cons and start going into your heart in terms of what is right for you. Because this these type of sentences where people say, oh, but this is my soul contract, this is my twin flame, this is just karma. These beliefs can be such a trap that keep you in cycles that you are meant to exit, that you are meant to go and leave and let go of these cycles. So your spiritual path isn't about staying no matter what. And it's not about going when everything gets hard. There's a center point there where sometimes the bravest move is not to stay, but to bless all parties and to thank them for everything that they've brought into your life and actually go. But only you know what the answer is. So these are the steps that you need to take in order to arrive at that answer. Number one, you need to speak your truth compassionately. If you feel that you aren't able to speak, then write it down in a letter. Write it down in a letter, for you to write it down, not for AI to write it down. What is it that you need to say? And be fair. Don't just start saying, well, you did this and you did this and you did this, because you wouldn't be together if you didn't have some good and some positive to begin with. So start with, well, I remember the days when this used to happen. I remember the days when you used to do this for me. I remember the days when I felt seen, when you did this and this for me. And I so appreciated those days. But then I noticed that things began to drop off. Then I noticed that you started to resent me every time I spoke. So be honest with your self-reflection of the journey when you're writing this letter, but speak your truth compassionately. So compassionately as much as possible from the other person's point of view as well as your point of view. And the next thing that needs to happen is that your partner and you need to both have the capacity to receive where you are both at. And then, if you are serious about working in the relationship and working on yourselves in the relationship, it's action, not words. You need to take action, not to just say some fancy words. So, some people are supposed to stay in your life until the lesson is learned. Others are meant to stay so you can face whatever you're supposed to face, your fear head on, and surrender to the knowing that you don't need anybody else's approval to be worthy, because you already are. But only you know as to whether you should stay or whether you should go. But but you must always stay in your truth. And in your truth means that if you can't speak because you're triggering the other person, if you can't speak because you're afraid of their reaction, then something needs to change. You need to tell them about it. You need to speak your truth. You need to speak up compassionately and assertively. And they are either prepared to come along for the ride or they're not. And if they're not, you need to face your fears, let it all go, bless the relationship, and leave. And once you do that, it will be pretty incredible and pretty amazing as to what will appear in front of you, as to what will arise for you, because everything is working for you. And always, always, always live in truth. I'd love to hear your comments, your questions, your thoughts, your reflections on everything that I have just shared. Sending you so much love.